Today's question comes from Nathan Boggs. How to be angry and sin not. How to be angry and sin not. Well, what he's talking about is referring to the verse in Ephesians 4:26 where it says, "Be angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath." I think what that's talking about in the context of that verse is the Christian life. I think that in order to be right with God and live above sin and live separated from sin, there has to be like a righteous indignation about you, where you're just like you can't have a passivity about it. You have to have strong resentment for sin if you're going to put on the new man in Christ. I've heard that verse preached years, where it's like a marriage verse, don't let the sun go down upon your wrath. So if you and your wife have a fight, stay up all night and figure it out, and don't put it off till tomorrow. That's not what that verse is talking about. That's talking about the righteous indignation that you need in order to live the Christian life the proper way. But let's, I want to talk about in the practical sense what he's talking about, how to be angry and sin not, meaning that how do you deal with your anger? And I gotta be honest with you, I think early on in my teenage years, I guess I did struggle with anger a little bit. I mean, I was you have to understand my context of where I grew up. Of course, I grew up in Metro Atlanta. It's hot. It was so hot in Atlanta. They called it Hot Atlanta for a reason. And I'm outside playing sports and all that, and it was just unbearable hot. And then I had a grandpa who I loved dearly. He was a Marine in the Marine Corps, so he knew how to be mean. I saw some scary things when that came out. Then I had another granddad. He was a World War II veteran, and he was a short temper man. I loved him dearly, but he was a very short temper man. And then all my football coaches. I had a basketball coach. I was surrounded by men. A lot of my life, especially my football coaches, buddy, they would cuss you out, chew your head off. And and you just had to say yes, sir, and go on. And to act like that didn't affect you is not true. A lot of these people talk about they have thick skin. I don't care how thick your skin is. If you live in that, and every day you're getting chewed out, every day you're getting cussed out. The psychology term for it that I heard years ago was, okay, mentally you can probably move past it, but your body keeps score. And for years and years and years of that, eventually you just learn to put your fist up, and you're ready for the next one, and you live in this constant, I'm ready to take on the next one, and it's like you without realizing it, your whole life you're wound, you're stuck like this in fight mode the whole time, and you don't know how to come out of that. And so when you're like that, and you're some slight inconvenience comes along, I mean, you give it everything, you overreact. That's what I'm saying. And you gotta for a lot of men, they go to work and they work for a terrible boss that just is so hard on them. And by the end of the day, I mean they've got their fighting gloves on, they're ready to go, and they leave work, and when they get home, they're still in that mode. And then your kid does something like kids do, and then you react to that because you have all that pent up anger from all day, especially on the job, and you have to manage that. One book that really helped me. I used to. When I got saved, God gave me a lot of victory over all that, and it helped me. I learned that, I remember we sang that song, "Love Lifted Me," and the love of Christ really, in a sense, helped me to come out of that, and to just to love people, and to, it softened my hard heart is what I had, and Christ, only Christ can do that. The Lord can do that for you. That's really was a great relief to me when the Lord started working and sanctifying me in that aspect of my Christian life. But still, you have that old man, that old nature, and every now and then, something had happened in Bible college, I'd go right back to that fight mode. And God, through the years, has given me great victory over that, and I'm glad. I think every Christian man has that. Whether you agree with that or not, I think everybody has that to a little bit. If you don't, something's wrong with you. You're toxic. You're just as toxic, but the other way. And I think we have a toxic passivity amongst men today. And that being said, you have to learn how to manage anger, and so you don't lose it on people. You don't lose it on your wife. You don't lose it on your kids. I mean, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about for fathers to provoke not your children unto wrath. Meaning, don't lose it on your kids to where you just slam the door and chew them out and cut them open and leave them bleeding. Don't provoke your kids to wrath. And one of the ways you can do that is to manage your own wrath. Should a Christian man be angry at some things? Absolutely, we should be angry about some stuff. But you have to. It has to be managed. It has to be righteous. And if it's not righteous, then it's sin. I think that's the problem with a lot of preachers today. A lot of preachers don't get mad about anything. The only time a lot of preachers today take a stand is when they're taking a stand against somebody who's taking a stand. They're okay with the Catholics. They're okay with the Mormons. They're okay with the Jehovah's Witnesses. But some fundamental Baptist preacher says those people are false teachers and need to be avoided. And boy, that's when they get mad. That's not righteous. That's a toxic sinfulness, just in a different direction. So that being said, a book that really helped me with this was a book called Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud. And what that did was that taught me that there's certain parameters that I should accept of behavior from other people. And if it goes outside of those parameters, I need to not even engage in those people, okay? And if you have a job that, where your boss comes up and calls you, you stupid idiot, you're an idiot, moron. Well, first of all, that's outside the parameters of what's acceptable behavior. And that's always going to be something that should provoke you to some sort of anger response. And you got to cut those people out of your life. You can't work for a job like that, because that's not right. That's sinful, and that's going to cause you to bow up and get mad, and staying within my boundaries and refusing to let people come into my boundaries and violate my boundaries in my personal life has eliminated a lot of things that used to make me mad. When I first started traveling to preach out, there were a lot of preachers who took a lot of real cheap shots at me, and it hurt me. And after a while of traveling for a year, where 2 or 3 times a month, some preachers really poking you in the eye, it makes you angry. You get angry at the ministry, you get angry at preachers, and you have to have those boundaries set up so that these men are not allowed access to do these things to you and say these things to you, so that you don't get mad. That's something you need. You need boundaries in your life. That'll help you a lot with anger. But then also you have to walk in the Spirit so that you don't fulfill the lust of the flesh. And of course that's Galatians 5. And one of the works of the flesh are quite evident there. And it says, let's see, the works of the flesh, Galatians 5:19, adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envying, murders, drunkenness, revelings. So you got wrath and strife are the works of the flesh, and you can't have that. That's not spiritual. But at the same time, there is a way to be angry in a righteous way, but not in a fleshly, wrathful way, if that makes sense. And so, if you're like some Kyle and you're punching holes in the sheetrock every few weeks, you need to learn to walk with God, or you need to make some changes in your life so that these triggers are not present anymore. And so, if you come home so mad, like if you work in a job and you come home, and every day when you come home, the dog runs under the porch and hides from you. If that's kind of job you're working, you probably need to change jobs. There you go. Good question. How do you deal with anger? You got to walk with God, man. You got to set some boundaries in your life. That'll help. Subscribe to this channel. We'll see you.